Hi, I'm Chef Vincent Schofield for Whisk and Ladle Hospitality. We're here at Park Commons in Sorrento Mesa. We're going to do a beautiful breakdown of this pig today. Make it very simple. We're not going to go crazy on it. We're going to do some primals. We're going to do some ham, some chucks or shoulders, get the bellies off, get the ribs off, and make some hams out of these guys, and the rest is going to go to grind for some sausage, some head cheese, and some pâté de campagne. So we're going to start very simply. I don't have the proper hanging equipment that you would normally have if you're butchering a pig to saw this in half. So what we're going to do is we're going to just crack the shoulders open a little bit so I can get to this guy. I just want to widen the cavity a little bit so that I can work. It's a beautiful beast. It's a Yorkshire cross. Weighs about 140 pounds. Came in 5 days ago, so it's been hanging and drying a little bit, so it's a little easier to work with. First thing I'm gonna do is take off the kidneys, which are just kind of sitting here, and these pull off really, really simply. There's one, and here is two. Beautiful thing about working with whole animals is you get to use every single part. Nothing is going to go to waste. We're going to use the kidneys and all the force meat. We're going to use the suet fat over here to make something delicious. And the guys, hopefully, this little piece right here is called a secreto. You'll see it in a minute. Maybe the guys will have a little snack with that later. So, really easy. I'm just going to start with pulling off this fat that lines the belly right here. And it really does pull off very simply. Most of the time on whole animal butchery, the pieces will present themselves to you. You don't need to do a lot of fussing. If you're a butcher breaking them down into chops and steaks, that is a lot more complicated, but for our purposes here, it's going to be pretty simple. That is the suet fat. So right here is what the Italians call the secreto. It's basically your little piece on the belly there. I don't know if you heard Jack, the reason why it's called a secreto is back in the day, the butcher would save that piece for himself. Really beautiful, delicious piece that we will eat up as a snack a little bit later. So now that I have that guy off, I'm just gonna do a little bit of trimming here. This is a little bit of looks like a trachea or something. We're gonna get that out of there. We're gonna take the head off first. We're gonna make it really easy. To butcher a whole pig, you don't need a lot of fancy knives or anything else. You actually don't even need a bone saw. I'm gonna use one today just so I don't make a mess of this. But like I said, since it's all going, or a lot of it's going into to grind for sausage and other force meats, I don't have to be extremely sensitive with my cuts. I can be a little more brutal, for the lack of a better word, even though we want to respect the animal as much as possible. You know, it's just fantastic to be able to use something so local and have a real connection to the way that we're using this animal. Young cooks get to see the way that we do it. They get a whole story behind where it came from, how we're butchering it, what cuts are going to what, how they're cooking it, and it gives, I think, a better connection to the end product that goes onto a plate, whether that be in a restaurant or in your kitchen. So buy local as much as possible whenever you can. Like I said, better connection, better story, and 99% of the time, better flavor. So we're gonna start with the head here. I'm just gonna make a cut right across the neck. And with my saw, I'm just gonna come through that neck bone. It doesn't take a lot. soon as I get through, I'm gonna go back to my knife. And there's the head. We're gonna make head cheese out of this, and as the name says, obviously it's not a cheese. It's basically just a beautiful, delicious charcuterie meat that you would put on a board, but it's made with all the nice, beautiful pieces, the snout, the jowls. I love the ears in there as well, but we're just gonna make every piece of the animal work. We'll make a delicious bone broth with all the bones that we'll pour over that, and that'll make it set like gelatin, and it'll be delicious and fantastic. This to the side here. And so the reason why we're breaking down this beautiful guy is for Celebrate the Craft, which is an annual event at Torrey Pines. I think the last 2 years, maybe it's been on hiatus because of the Ronas, but now it's back. And you know, everyone's helping out and do a little bit of everything. We have Gravity Heights Brewery, which we're gonna make some beautiful beer brats out of this, their local beer. We have a local fermenter who's gonna be doing a lot of fermentation on beautiful accoutrement that's gonna go with everything for this guy. We're just having a good time with it. We're having fun. It's, you know, I would love to do this every week and serve a whole pig or whole cow or whole goat, whatever, in the restaurants. But for this specific guy, he's gonna go 100% to all the bunch of yummies and goodies that we will make here in-house for the event. Again, we're going to just roll this guy over. Now, obviously, this is much easier if you have the proper stuff, but any table will work. So as far as the hams go, I'm just gonna make a cut right across the back here, and I'm about 1 inch in from where the tailbone ends. So if you guys can see that right there, that's where I'm gonna kind of make my cut to get the hams off. Same there, just follow this line. And we're gonna do the same thing with the bone saw as we did with the head. I'm just gonna cut through the backbone. It's not gonna take very much. That was it. So really easy. If you hit the right spots, it literally, most of it comes apart itself. So that is where our hams will come from. Tailbone sits right here. We're just gonna take that guy out and then make this into two. Again, I don't need the bone saw for this. I'm gonna use it, but I technically could crack this guy all the way down, but just for the purposes of and there is one of the hams. So we're gonna take this H-bone out here a little bit. We'll trim off. This is the tailbone, and that guy comes off very easily. Just follow, and there's the tailbone. So all this will be a beautiful ham. I'm gonna leave the feet on, or the hoof on. Hoof, is that what it is for a cow? Or for a pig, sorry. Trotter. And we're gonna take this femur boat out in here, but leave this on for presentation. We'll get it in the brine for about 10 days and then smoke it, and that'll be it. So it'll be a really simple process. Most big commodity places on your fresh hams, it's done in 24 hours with 40, 50, 100 needles, just injecting brine into it, a solution, and then it gets cooked off. So we'll start with these. We'll leave these guys here. Pull this tailbone off again. And there is our other ham. Again, like I said, this is only a 4-month-old piggy. So traditionally on a 6 to 8 month, the fat cap would be 4 or 5 times as big. This would be a monster piece of meat. But for our purposes, we're doing a little smaller, guys. So now we're gonna take off the shoulders. Now, I've cracked the rib cage here. It's fine. We're not gonna be using, like I said, these cuts for presentation in a restaurant, but obviously we wanna respect the animal and everything as much as possible, but this is the best way that I know how to butcher a pig. And again, so I am self-taught butcher, so it's practice, practice, practice. And if you have the opportunity, it's going to be delicious. You know, you want to respect it as much as possible, but if you mess up on a cut, it's not the biggest deal in the world. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come the third bone in, and that's where I'm going to make my mark. So I'm gonna come 1, 2, 3 bones in. In between the third and the fourth rib is where I'm going to make my mark. And I'm just gonna come up there like that. And that's where I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And then I'm gonna cut through the spine, or sorry, this bone here, and that's where I'm gonna take these shoulders off at. Again, if I was butchering this pig for cuts that are gonna go into the restaurant, I would be a lot more gentle. But like I said, a lot of it's going to grind, so we're still gonna respect it, but we don't have to be as neat. One more time with the saw. We're gonna come down. You wanna keep the saw as perpendicular as possible. I already see it hit me, and then I'm gonna cut through that bone there, and I am through. Because when your saw starts inching forward or inching back, you end up grinding into the meat. You end up having a harder time just controlling the saw. So as straight as possible, you just want to cut through the bone. You don't want the saw blade to really do any of the cutting of the meat for you, so that you keep it nice. It's just, and then do the cleaner cuts with your knife. So I see a little bit here that I missed. You can hear the bone snap when you're using the saw, and once it snaps, that's all you need. You don't want to overdo it. Correct. Looks like I got a little bit. So what I hit here is a little bit of that H-bone from the shoulder. But it's soft enough that I just took my knife, gave it a little chop, and it came right off. So here are the shoulders. And as you can see, these are your loins. So this would be shoulder chops coming from here. These last 3 ribs we really wouldn't use for much, except for maybe some, maybe a nice sauce or stewing it up. But all of my beautiful shoulder meat is gonna come from here. We're gonna break this down and go into grind. But what I'm gonna do, these are tougher cuts. So it's obviously, pig is a quadruped, like most animals that we eat. So it sits, most of its muscles are on its shoulders, on its front leg. That's where it puts its weight. All their power is in their front. So if you notice, the softest part of any cow or pig is the filet mignon. While that runs down the back, the only time that animal really uses that muscle is when it goes to mount a mate.
Basically drags its rear end.
Exactly, so it drags its rear end. So that's why all the leg muscles are tough, but the shoulders are always going to be the toughest. That's where it sits most of its power on weight on. So the reason why this meat is darker than this meat is myoglobin. flows through it because it uses it more, so which makes it a tougher cut, but also gives it more flavor. So we use these cuts most of the time for, like I said, the front few chops can be grilled, delicious. They've got a little bit of chew on them, but I think it's fantastic and fine. The rest, like I said, we would use mostly for sausage, or we would braise, or things of that nature. What I'm gonna do, since I already have these bones off of the spine, is I'm just gonna follow them so I don't have to use the saw so much anymore, hopefully. I'm gonna have to use it. But as you can see, I've started that process already by when I pulled it apart. So I'm just gonna take, again, perpendicular. And we can just kind of pull it apart. This is not a gentle process, but it's fun. In my opinion, like I said, you get a real kind of feel of and more education on the cut. So as you can see, it just wants to fall apart by itself. Leverage is always your friend. I have this table here. If I needed to, I would put it on the end. I can use that as leverage to kind of help open up. This isn't a very big animal, so it's a little easier. All right, we need to saw a little bit again. As you can see here, this bone here, if this hog was hanging, I could take a hatchet and literally just leverage and weight would just help me split the whole thing in half really easily. We're just gonna and there are our shoulders. So here's a little bit of the loin coming in. So all this bone will be taken off. I used to make a broth for the head cheese. So here are the chops. Loin runs down, belly. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take this and split it down the middle. Easier said than done, like I said, in this circumstance, because we don't have it hanging, but it's not the hardest thing in the world. So, literally just gonna take the middle of that. Now that I have that, I can kind of show you. Let's see if I can do it. So usually this will be hanging. This guy's there. It'll just split, like I said. If I start it, it'll split with my hand. But I could also go bone by bone and pop them open. But we're gonna keep using the saw because it's much cleaner. As you can see, I'm just kind of working whatever tool works best for me at the time. I'm just gonna put my blade in there, snap that a little bit. But we have most of this done, so I'm just gonna take it, start splitting it down the middle. Again, I'm gonna get a little leverage over here to make things easier. And because I said the leverage earlier, so I just wanna, and as you can see, it starts to get a lot easier when getting this thing done. finish off this way. Give me a little more leverage. So as you can see, even as a chef, it's not perfect. I got a little bit of this bone that came off of here. It's okay for our purposes, but those are basically your loin, belly. Now, if I was making a porchetta or something, I would take off these bones here, these rib bones, and then my loin would be on this side. I'd season it up, roll it up, tie it up, and cook it out. But that's pretty much all the cuts that we're gonna do for today. So these are just our basic cuts here. Like I said, we have the head, our hams, belly and loin, and shoulders. It'll be a beautiful charcuterie and cured meat for Celebrate the Craft. Thank you guys very much, and don't forget to like and subscribe.